Hello everyone, welcome back into Crypto's News. It is me, Omar Bam, aka Crypto, here with an update for what's going on in crypto. This week, really, I've been having a really busy week personally. Like my Yorkie Chihuahua had a dentist appointment super early yesterday. They had to take out 6 teeth, which by the way requires them to go under general anesthesia. So like super worrying, but he's recovering super well. And we have another guest on the show today. His name is Kiwi. He's a little bird. He's actually standing on my microphone right now. So if you're lucky at some point, he'll waddle on over here and you guys can check him out. I know some of you guys care about Kiwi and the other pets we got here. And Wallace is down there hiding under the drum set that I've got here. Yeah, he's taking a nap. That's where he likes to be during the videos. These are the show producers, and so are you guys. Thank you all, especially YouTube sponsors and Patreon supporters who make this show possible. We're back with an update on what's going on. There are more stirrings about, like you might have guessed from the title, around the Fed, what that looks like going forward here, maybe firing the current chairman of the Federal Reserve and appointing someone else, or just getting rid of the Fed altogether. What will that look like? We're going to be looking at some news surrounding that. We're also going to be talking about Oregon reviving a case against Coinbase. We'll be looking at the end, and plenty more. So you're going to want to stay tuned to the end. And I will start off here as usual with a hello. Hey, Mr. Orange, with a hello to you guys. And then afterwards, let's go ahead and look at what's going on with the market. We have Bitcoin pretty much flat. For me, it's looked pretty much flat all week. People are celebrating that in the first half of, or actually over the last year's chart, we saw $70,000 Bitcoin looking like a resistance point. Bitcoin had trouble breaching that. And now we're looking at $80,000 as a solid support level. So really the trend upwards just continuing despite all the chaos and uncertainty that we are seeing on a macro level, especially here in the United States. But obviously we're exporting some of that concern or a lot of that concern around the entire world. I mean, I just heard today that China is, well, Ford is no longer shipping to China. I'm sure you've heard about Hong Kong not accepting parcels from the United States anymore, and so much else. So what will the world look like at the end of this? We're going to try to figure that out as we go along the way. But yeah, there are no test cases for anything that we're heading into. But we did all know that cryptocurrencies were here to support us, to be the life raft again. When we cannot trust the politicians, when we cannot trust the central bankers or bankers in general, and ultimately create a decentralized economy for the world to prosper on permissionlessly. I think we're still on trajectory for that, but we're still living in the old world that seems to be in the midst of some huge transition. Luckily, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies seem like they're going to be coming out as big winners here as we go forward. But for now, we're just kind of sitting and tightening these bands as we stay within this very tight range. They say that traders love volatility above anything else, and certainly that's what has drawn so many over to cryptocurrencies and away from more traditional markets, the huge volatility. And it does always return, especially when it goes away in crypto. So the fact that it's held up despite so much concern and impacts on stocks that we're seeing, even tech stocks, we are seeing it hold up well. To me, this could mean that we could be getting ready for actually a leg higher. Looking at the charts, it looks like it wants to continue, but always trade carefully. We do see, let's say, for example, that we are in a bear market, a recession happens, right? 2 quarters of declining GDP in the United States, and that eventually becomes something worse than a depression, like Ray Dalio is talking about, the founder of what is going on out there, of the biggest hedge fund in the world, who has stepped down since, Bridgewater. He was out talking about he expects something worse than even like a recession, a depression, something worse, stagflation to the extremes, a situation where we're losing jobs, losing employment, right? And at the same time, we have inflation, which is something very difficult for the Fed to combat, because normally what they do when employment is going down, one of their mandates, along with inflation and managing that, is to lower interest rates to make capital available to open up employment again. But what happens if we're trying to bring back manufacturing through isolationism in the age of robots and increasingly smarter AI that will be operating these things? There are factories already in China that have been way ahead of the curve here when it comes to robotics and producing things. And I have a feeling that we're actually not going to be creating as many jobs for manufacturing. Maybe some managing these AIs and robots at various facilities. But it's going to be a strange world, guys. And we have to protect ourselves the best way that we know how. And I know the best way I know how is to stay informed of cryptocurrency. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing here. So yeah, to continue with the prices, Bitcoin right now, $84,506.15, down 0.4% over the last 24 hours, up marginally over the last 7 days at 1%. We have Ethereum at $1592.99. It is up 0.6%, so up marginally again over the last day, and up a bit more than Bitcoin over the last week at 1.3%. The biggest gainer on the week has been Solana. It is up to $133.99, up 10.6% on the week. But for me, this is pretty much a flat week. This is like no volatility crypto here. So it's time to enjoy the calm before the storm. It looks like we're at least in the eye of the storm right now. Whether we go up or down is the big bet. Whether you're a trader who's buying or you're the trader who's selling, you're the one who thinks that they made the smart decision, right? So just trade carefully and be careful around leverage, of course, as we often remind folks out here. So M2 money supply continues to grow. Currently, as of May 2020, this is calculated using savings deposits, which includes money market deposit accounts, which generally pay higher interest for folks. Also, small denomination time deposits that are in the amounts of less than $100,000, less individual retirement accounts. So M2 money does not include these retirement account funds. However, you have to keep in mind that after 2020, they adjusted how they calculate the M2 money supply. So before 2020, they included savings deposits and money market accounts, which is a lot of money, right? And after 2020, COVID times, let's fudge the numbers a little bit and change what we're looking at. So no longer does M2 also include savings deposits and money market accounts. And what this means is that inflation looks better than it is, this monetary inflation, which is what we're talking about, this money velocity. It was picking up quite a bit, and now it's picking up again. It looks like it's back to the trend that it previously was at, right? We had been steadily rising over time. Then it went parabolic back in 2020, printing of money. It went quite extreme all the way until 2022. Looks like around April, May, where it dropped off for a bit. The Fed was tightening their monetary policy and raising interest rates, and that did not last very long. Just how many had predicted it. The spigots were again kind of turned on. They're not really turned on fully just yet, but I think we're in the beginning of that perhaps. Anyways, we're climbing again, and it looks like we're just going back to the normal trend. But because we're not really counting M2 as we did before 2020, I actually would perceive this chart to be spiking a little bit higher than what it looks like currently. Anyway, just wanted to point that out. We also are hearing about China. China's M2 money supply just hit a record $326 trillion. And analysts say, according to Cointelegraph here, that the surge in liquidity could help push Bitcoin towards the 90K mark. Yeah, that's what this is about. More and more talks on investing forums about where to allocate capital. Cash looks scary right now. Bonds really uncertain. They're whiplash right now as tariffs are causing real fears around everything. Should I get into gold mining stocks? Not really sure about that one just yet. That's what Peter Schiff would say to you. Gold at least looks like a decent place to be hedging for many people, traditional investors, which is why you've seen it make all-time highs recently. And I think this is something that Bitcoin definitely, with more monetary assets out there, benefit from when people are trying to figure out what to do. So this is capital around the world, right? We're hearing fears from Canada as well, as we are closing their biggest supplier, our economy in the United States, over to Canada. So the world becoming isolationist, and folks having to figure out how they're going to survive through all of this. And unfortunately, we still live under this fiat monetary system, but it looks quite shaky. the conspiracy theorist people would say that what's going on here is that the administration here in the United States is trying to sow chaos, trying to get people at Walmart to finally perceive these higher prices as painful, right? And this is something they really might not have felt yet because of warehoused goods still keeping prices looking relatively fine. Many corporations like Walmart hoping that things just go back to normal, which doesn't look likely. Like I had heard this talk about the Suez Canal, remember when that got blocked in Panama? And that just 6 days of being closed caused so many prices to spike for goods that were being transferred via this most popular canal to travel goods through, right? And that impacted us for a while afterwards. So we're already in this, and we're about to see what this looks like on the other side here. And folks saying this could be worse than COVID. So if you see at Walmart somebody looking at these prices and flipping the table, so to speak, this might, and many people doing that, right? And violence going up and everything else, then that could ultimately result in something like martial law, which will be military control, really, of our population here in the U.S., which would be quite scary. I don't know if that's the grand plan here, but yeah, I guess we will continue to monitor it. Anyway, waiting for my portfolios to 10x so I can finally live my life. Yeah, this is what it do feel like, right? This is kind of like bear market stuff here. I can't believe people are feeling like this completely. But yeah, absolutely. You want to be conserving capital, I would say, just because of this uncertainty, despite just waiting for everything to spike up. That's literally me right now, said Party MSL here on the cryptocurrency subreddit. Anyway, so there's this bill that has been produced to abolish the Board of Governors and the Federal Reserve System and the Federal Reserve Banks, to repeal the Federal Reserve Act and for other purposes. You can find it on Mike Lee's website, a senator, a Republican senator from Utah, introducing the Federal Reserve Board Abolition Act, legislation that would dissolve the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System and the Federal Reserve Banks and repeal the 1913 Federal Reserve Act, which established the system. Representative Thomas Massey, representative from Kentucky, leads the companion bill in the House of Representatives. So this was actually put out last year, but it's coming up again. Apparently, it's still going forward here. I kind of looked at it like, yeah, right, this is not going to do anything. But now with the new administration, not really so keen on what the current chairman Powell is doing, maybe we could see more support from this from other Republicans who are really leading everything for the most part, it appears, here in the United States. And some quotes here: the Federal Reserve has overstepped and repeatedly failed to achieve its mandate and become an economic manipulator, and has become, I guess, an economic manipulator that has directly contributed to the financial instability many Americans face today, according to Mr. Lee. This legislation aims to protect our economic future by dismantling a system that enables unchecked government spending, the monetization of federal debt that fuels it, and widespread economic disruption. It's time to end the Fed. I don't think it's a coincidence that income tax was created around the time, as we finish tax week here in the US, was created around the time when the Federal Reserve was born. And Massey representative said Americans are suffering under crippling inflation and the Federal Reserve is to blame. During COVID, the Federal Reserve created trillions of dollars out of thin air. They need to start coming up with new metaphors, because this, I feel like people hear thin air and they've heard it so many times that it's not impactful. So you should find new ways to talk about this. I guess that's why the Burr meme came out, right? The money printer money, a meme, I mean. And they loaned these trillions of dollars at, whatever, this was the quote, that were created out of thin air to the Treasury Department to enable unprecedented deficit spending. By monetizing the debt, the Federal Reserve devalued the dollar and enabled free money policies that caused the high inflation we see today. We certainly are seeing inflation pick up again. It has not stalled, really. Since this was created. And it looks like the Treasury Secretary in the United States, Scott Bessent, is announcing that they're going to be interviewing new candidates to lead the Federal Reserve, to be the head chairman in this fall, as they get ready for to put in somebody else, right? Trump has been lambasting Jerome Powell a lot on social media and elsewhere, trying to get them to lower interest rates and basically threatening him fired. So it looks like his reign will not probably last all the way through to 2026 when he'll be leaving. And either way, they're going to be interviewing here in fall. So it looks like Jerome Powell is going to be out on May 2026, speaking during either way, right? That's when his reign ends. His reign. People are actually loving Jerome Powell right now on these mainstream investing forums. It's all like, wow, respect, mad respect for Jerome Powell. Am I the only one in the room who respects Jerome Powell? I love him. I kiss his toes. He's done so many things for us. He's looked at the data. Yeah, the fake data. Absolutely, the fake data. And speaking during a visit to Argentina, Bessent noted that the Trump administration would use approximately 6 months leading up to Powell's term expiration to make preparations. President Trump has publicly urged Powell to reduce interest rates, raising concerns about pressure on the Fed's independence. However, Bessent stated that he is not worried about Trump undermining Powell or central bank's autonomy. He emphasized the importance of separating the Fed's monetary policy role from its bank regulatory function, suggesting more discussion is needed on the latter, given the Fed shares regulatory duties with the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency and FDIC. So these are all disclaimers to basically try to make it look like we're not printing our own money. Oh no, the Federal Reserve prints the money, and they're independent. We don't tell them what to do, except the president kind of is telling them what to do or threatening. So I think this is part of what's causing concern around the United States debt instruments, our bonds around the world, is that if the Fed is not independent, it seems to be a widely held belief that is constantly said. You know, you say something a lot and people begin to believe it. The Fed independent, right? Like they don't call each other in the background and hang out at different G20 events and whatever. Anyway, they're independent. They make their own decisions, and they're doing it for the best of everybody. They're doing the best that they can. And so they have to kind of signal this way. That's why you're hearing Scott Bessent say that they're independent, even though they're going to be likely putting someone that they want in there. So that is questioning independence from people outside the United States and within it, and causing shakiness in the bond market. I certainly feel that's playing a role personally. Bessent also shared that he meets weekly with Powell to discuss a wide range of issues. Okay, so there it is. So it says right here. So the Treasury Secretary, the government, is hanging out every single week with Powell, with the Fed, who's independent, right, to discuss a wide range of issues, and noted that there are currently no significant concerns about financial market stability or bond market developments. They wouldn't tell us if there were, because that could exacerbate a problem and make it even worse if people felt fear or instability around this. So likely they won't signal that until the jig is up, right? That's why people watch alternative media. The market doesn't seem to be caring about this news very much, writes anonymous time waster here on the investing subreddit, which I got banned from, I believe, back in 2016 or 2015 for talking about Bitcoin and trying to help folks. No, apparently you're only supposed to buy index funds. Is this another case of hedge funds believing it when they see it? Just 6 months ago, if someone said the independence of the Fed was under threat, it'd be a black swan event for the American market. But today, it just seems to be treated as business as usual. I think certainly we're living in times where we should expect the unexpected, and things that we thought would never be passed could very likely be passed. It's ever more important to stay on top of things these days. So there's a new company. They're planning an IPO. Swedish BTCAB wants to be Europe's answer to MicroStrategy. So we're switching gears here to talk about another company that wants to be a Bitcoin first company, a Bitcoin Treasury company first. I mean, don't we all just want to accrue as much Bitcoin as possible? I guess some corporations or individuals who are forming corporations are ahead of other ones. But as individuals, especially you guys listening to this, I think that is the goal, right? Anyway, so they want to have a single purpose, to buy and hold Bitcoin. So of course, the maximalists really behind this company. They want to become a listed Bitcoin company. Our vision is to become a publicly traded company that acts as a bridge to Bitcoin for institutional and private investors in Europe. So yeah, if you hear about this BTCAB company, this is who they are. Also, Michael Saylor's strategy has proven to be quite fruitful, as it says here. They've outperformed NVIDIA, Tesla, Google, Apple, Microsoft, all of this since they've started to drop off a bit around this tariff uncertainty, some of these tech stocks. Michael Saylor's investment strategy, however, centered on Bitcoin, has outperformed major tech companies, like we just mentioned, since the onset of the Bitcoin standard era. First time I hear that. BSE, MicroStrategies Inc.'s stock has surged by 2,466%, driven by this Bitcoin-focused approach. So this is, wrong immediately, right? Because they are no longer called MicroStrategy. They're called Strategy. So they're not MicroStrategy, first of all. And the Bitcoin standard era makes it seem like it's a real word. But I think what they're just talking about here is when MicroStrategy began to buy Bitcoin. That started the Bitcoin standard era. I think it actually started when Satoshi wrote the white paper. So I'm not really entirely sure what they mean by BSE. Maybe I missed something. But you guys let me know. This AI-generated article, I don't even feel like it's wrong to quote the entire thing because it's AI generated and probably hallucinating some of this, such as the name of the company of Strategy. Anyway, additionally, Bitcoin has consistently delivered strong returns, outperforming gold and S&P 500 within 60 days following the major global crises since 2020, with an average return of 37%. Wow, crisis, and we're up 37%, beats a lot of other investments, if this is to be believed. This performance highlights the growing impact of Bitcoin as an investment asset in comparison to traditional tech stocks and other benchmarks. And other hey, what's up, B-Internet user? It's nice to see you, man. Woo! So, Panama City will accept Bitcoin and Ethereum as payment for public services. Panama's largest city will allow its citizens to pay for taxes, tickets, fees, and permits in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and stable coins. So, according to the mayor, oh man, I didn't notice this before. The Panama City mayor, whose name is Mayor Mizrachi, oh man, the simulation has to be real, said Wednesday in an X post that they've passed a proposal enabling local offices to accept payments in crypto, writes decrypt.co. Under the new laws, locals will be able to pay for taxes. Yay, taxes, tickets, permits, and fees with several digital assets, beginning with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and USDC and Tether stable coins. I'm hearing more talks about how, like, these stable coins being adopted more and more. This is something that is really problematic for Ethereum specifically, as someone who holds still primarily Ethereum. And think about it. USDC accepted pretty much everywhere by now, rooted for by institutional, retail, and more companies, DeFi companies alike, let's call it, in smart contracts. It's become almost integral to the entire infrastructure of Ethereum. So in a way, something like USDC might have outsized influence in the event of an Ethereum hard fork, where they could basically decide by themselves what the majority fork is, because all these nodes would kind of be forced to go along with it, since they've revolved so much of their business around USDC, and it drives so much of the liquidity around Ethereum. So this is something that we have to talk about, the good and the bad, and that is something that does give me pause right now. I think Ethereum has definitely been headed, kind of, it seems, in the wrong direction. I think kind of supporting layer 2s more than fixing layer 1 is like the first thing that kind of bothered me a lot. And thinking about this potential, I think, catastrophic problem, right, where it's supposed to be decentralized, we all get a say. We really don't, if USDC is and Circle are the ones who primarily get a say. So something that does give me pause and gets me more to wanting to hold Bitcoin instead of Ethereum. I have to put that out there. What are your thoughts around that, guys? Thank you so much, Renee. I'm still hodling, though, Ethereum. I'm glad you have this shirt, man. It's super old. There's this game that came out, because these shirts are like beginning to fray, right? I've washed them so many times and wore them to different events and stuff. And I really only wear them now for this show, my crypto shirts. But there's this game that came out, maybe you heard of it, Inzoi. It's like a Sims competitor, I guess you could call it. I haven't really played it, but you can scan t-shirts and I believe furniture and stuff into the game. So I was thinking I should scan all of my crypto t-shirts so that they will live on in their ecosystem, since we don't have some sort of like public decentralized ledger kind of game where I can do that. I could commemoralize them and that. I just thought that was pretty funny that we could do. Anyway, what's up, man? Nice to see you. So it's unclear if and when Panama City will accept other kinds of digital assets in exchange for public services, but yes, they're starting with Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDC, and Tether. So heads up to that. Also, Coinbase is apparently discontinuing their Web3 wallet. So I remember being like pushed into downloading this wallet and setting it up when they first released it. It could hold NFTs, it could hold tokens that are not supported on Coinbase, but users are not able to take out their private key. It looks like they're shutting down this entire business. Here's a blog post that I found on esensi.com. Coinbase for a time offered a Web3 wallet, an on-chain wallet, which you could access via the side menu within your Coinbase account. The Web3 wallet has been discontinued, prompting users to empty out any cryptos and NFTs in it. So look into that, guys, and watch out for any phishing scams. Make sure you're on the right website. Make sure that you're very careful if you have any funds in these wallets and you have to get them out, right? I never really understood the purpose of it. It was on chain, but you didn't have keys to it. Coinbase manages the address for users. Through the address, you can trade in tokens that aren't supported by Coinbase, access DeFi, and interact with Web3 apps, dApps. I poked around a bit, but never really used it. It didn't show up in the Coinbase wallet app yet. It was tied to it somehow. Anyway, it was a shared custody wallet, and if the fact that they're shutting it down and having you migrate your tokens out of it means that you might be eligible for 2 months free of Coinbase One. That could get you discounts on trading tiers, so that could be worth it if you're doing a lot of trading, especially on Coinbase, right? And if you have one of these wallets, then very likely you have a Coinbase account. So this could be good for you right here. Wanted to give you a heads up on that one because you have a chance to get your tokens out, protect them. Maybe you missed the news and could even get some free Coinbase One out of this. And in the other news that I had mentioned that I was going to be talking about here is this. Oregon Attorney General Rayfield sues Coinbase for promoting and selling high-risk investments. What? Are we back like 2 years ago? Are we doing this again? But here we go. States must fill enforcement vacuum being left by federal regulators who are abandoning these cases under Trump administration. Under Attorney General Dan Rayfield today filed a lawsuit against Coinbase, one of the largest cryptocurrency trading platforms in the United States, for violating the Oregon securities law. The lawsuit claims that Coinbase has both encouraged and helped the sale of unregistered cryptocurrencies to people in Oregon. In doing so, Coinbase has reaped millions of dollars in fees as Oregonians have faced huge losses, often devastating from risky investments in a market that's stacked against them and hard to navigate. I think every market is stacked against them, so that is not crypto specific and certainly not unregistered security. They're all extremely risky. All investments are risky. Even money market accounts are risky. So this is not a great way to start this. Anyway, whatever. After building trust with Oregon customers, Coinbase sold high-risk investments without them being properly vetted to protect customers. Oregonians lost money, and we believe Coinbase should be held accountable and take steps to protect consumers. So every time that I've taken a risky trade, am I due money for losing money? I didn't know that I was guaranteed money on an investment. Are we trying to rewrite what investing is here? Some of this relates, for example, to this cryptocurrency, which I've mentioned even before it released, ICP. I'm sure many of you remember that. Internet Computer Protocol, which the SEC previously identified as an unregistered security. Shot him with a target. Got him. Plummeted in price from $700 to $72 within 1 month after it was launched for public trading on Coinbase. Today, the coin trades around $7 per share, a drop of almost 99% that wiped out billions of dollars of investors' money. Anyway, I'm committed to protecting Oregon's investors so that they're not taken advantage of because of this enforcement vacuum with federal regulators under the new administration. And in response to this, Paul Grewal of Coinbase, he put out a blog post. He said, as everyone knows, the war against crypto waged by the previous SEC and its allies is over. Crypto won. The SEC finally caught up with the reality that the vast majority of digital assets are not securities, and there is widespread public support for this revolutionary technology. At last, the U.S. showed it was ready to turn the page on that dark, misguided chapter of unlawfully targeting the industry. But Oregon's Attorney General, Dan Rayfield, refuses to face the reality and is trying to fight the same war all over again. We've learned today that he will file a securities enforcement action against Coinbase, asserting the same stale, repeatedly refuted theories that the SEC rightly disavowed without prejudice, by the way, when it dismissed its case against Coinbase. These hand-me-down arguments are years out of date and defy public opinion, technological progress, and good governance. Let there be no doubt Oregon's lawsuit, like the SEC's, is meritless, and Coinbase will do whatever is required to beat it. Oh, thank you, man. It's going good, Bit64. Thank you so much for that tip, brother. Sincerely, man. You're like such a hardcore supporter, and I can't thank you for like showing up on just a random day when I decide to put up this video. It means a lot, man. I hope you're doing great. And wow, you're in Panama City, so you'll be able to pay your local taxes and get your permits over there. Anyway, really cool that they are supporting, however, using these things, right, for currency. Going back to what we were talking about before, maybe you guys just joined us. They're accepting Ethereum, Bitcoin, USDC, and Tether for services. What does upset me, though, that I should have mentioned back then is that, of course, they're going to work with an intermediary who will accept cryptocurrency, right, when you make that payment and convert it to fiat. So in a nutshell, you're just basically selling your cryptocurrencies by doing that. So then you're liable, I don't know about Panama, but for potential capital gains taxes on top of sales taxes, on top of putting selling pressure on the industry. So this, I've just talked about this for years, is not the right way to go. We have to accept these cryptocurrencies and hold them if we really believe in them. If they really believe in Bitcoin, Ethereum, Tether, and USDC, then they should hold on to those, right? At least a portion of them. I think that would make sense, but that doesn't look like what they're trying to do. Anyway, that was the big reason I even mentioned that, but I'm sure it's beautiful out there. I would love to visit one day Panama. Anyway, going back to Oregon here and their new old lawsuit against Coinbase and unregistered securities. Let there be no doubt. I already said that part. But no lawsuit is harmless. In fact, Oregon's lawsuit directly undermines constructive policymaking happening in D.C. Bipartisan momentum has never been stronger to pass comprehensive federal legislation for digital assets, legislation that would enable domestic crypto businesses to thrive while preventing rogue state governments from bringing politically motivated actions against crypto firms. So they're basically calling Oregon's government a rogue state government. Yet instead of waiting for Democrats and Republicans in Congress to enact clear rules of the road, Oregon has taken it upon itself to try to regulate a worldwide industry through enforcement. Oregon's holdout campaign is obstruction for the sake of obstruction. It is a desperate scheme that does nothing to move the crypto conversation forward, and in fact takes us a giant leap backwards from hard-won progress. Coinbase customers in Oregon and elsewhere can rest easy. We remain business as usual in the state, and we are prepared to see this case, like others, through as far as necessary. We do not and will never shrink from fighting injustice, and we will never stop standing up for our customers and industry. Right? Fantastic. I think it speaks for itself, what Paul said here. And again, I'm a big believer that if we are going to be issuing out, if the SEC does nothing at all, it should be supporting something like ICOs and stopping things like pre-seed rounds and venture capitalist rounds and accredited investor rounds, whereby retail really has no chance at winning out there, right? There's a reason that ICP dumped so much. They did have these pre-seed rounds, I'm pretty sure, if I'm remembering them correctly, and I'm not confusing them with something like Dfinity. But this is what meant that early investors had the opportunity to get these tokens at a discount and then dump on retail when it goes live on a platform like Coinbase, as opposed to allowing it to be listed immediately so we could have more of a free market opportunity. More like what you see with meme coins, except those, for the most part, have no value. Even Trump's coin is down over 90% from when that was issued. I mean, he realized probably it wasn't supposed to have legs. It was almost like he was funding something there, his other ventures into crypto. But anyway, stay frosty, my friends. I hope that you guys are doing everything you can to stay aware and informed through these crazy times. And thank you for letting me be a piece of it, of your journey, and for allowing me to share mine with you guys as we go forward here. Kiwi here looks sleepy, so I'm going to wrap up this video. You look beautiful, Keeb. You look really tired. Thank you for being here on the video. He's my little green cheek conure. And thank all of you guys for being here for this video. I wish you the best on this weekend. Happy Easter. If I don't catch you guys, take care. Much love and stay cryptic. Peace.